Hello.
Hey, there you are. Sorry,
Hi.
I had you turned off because I was getting ready for the stream. So I just wanted to make sure you're streaming to your channel okay.
Yeah, let me check my channel.
Okay, we're live right now, just so you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, I'm not gonna drop any Q bombs or qubits or anything. All right, let's see here. I'm gonna hopefully go live. I hear you.
Hello.
There we are. All right, we're on live. Tony, how are you, my friend?
I'm good. Welcome back, Brian. So welcome everybody to a special edition of our Astro Bookshelf Hangouts with Dr. Brian Keating. Today we're going to talk about books, I think. Right,
Yeah.
Brian?
Right. I read 41 books this year.
Wow, 41. And you've interviewed a lot of really great authors of those books as well.
Yeah.
So at the top of the stream, let me just say, go, if you don't know about Brian yet, you got to figure it out. You got to find out about him. Go to his channel. The link is in the description box of this video, and subscribe to him. He interviews all the cool kids, right? Everybody in science that's worth anything Brian knows. How do you know all these people, by the way? How do you know you do know everybody. I was just chatting here with John in the chat about that.
Yeah. Well, I've been a practicing stalker for many years. It's kind of
okay.
I stalk. I wait outside their kids' schools. I do all sorts of, friendly things because I think they're lonely. No, I met a lot of them in my capacity as the co-director of the Arthur C. Clarke Center for Human Imagination. And that brought a lot of great intellects here. But I think, it really all started with Michael Shermer. This past April, he had a book come out. He had me on his show, Science Salon, last year when my book came out, Losing the Nobel Prize. And he had me on, and then I said, I want to return the favor in person. Why don't you come to UC San Diego for your next book, Giving the Devil His Due, which is somewhere behind me. And we scheduled it for, April 1st or something of this year. And there's a little thing called the COVID pandemic going on at that time. So I said, in lieu of that.
What?
Yeah.
I don't know what that is.
I said, instead of coming down to San Diego, we'll do a virtual interview about the book. And he then connected me to a bunch of people. I connected him to some people, and we've been going all the way since April on the Into the Impossible podcast. Now we're up to 8 Nobel Prize winners. I've come up with started writing 2 new books myself.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Any salacious gossip you want to give us on what you're writing?
Yeah. I'm gonna. It's a line by line transcript of the Brett Kavanaugh trial, and because we have the same initials, Brett Kavanaugh. No, I'm just kidding.
I was gonna say, oh my god.
No, that's where the similarities end. I haven't been an altar boy in a very long time.
Okay.
So you might know about this book, which I read. A couple percent. Anybody out there in the audience, have you read or heard about this book, Tim Ferriss's Tools of Titans?
No, I have not read that one.
So Tim is a podcaster extraordinaire. They call him the Tony Darnell of internet bro podcasting.
They don't call him that. No.
So I figured what he does, he interviews, top performers. He calls it tactics, routines, habits of billionaires, icons, etc. And for me, I said, well, I can't really, that's not really my brand. I'm not going to he does all these injections with mushrooms and all sorts of stuff. I'm not going to do that. He's a single bachelor. I've got a bunch of kids running around at home. So what I decided to do is take my brand, which is, of course, the Nobel Prize.
Right.
Actual Nobel. No, I dropped it. No, it's my Hanukkah gelt. But
that's why you're interviewing all these Nobel Prize winners. You're pickpocketing their medals.
They've brought them with them whenever they come to give a talk here. They bring their Nobel Prizes with them. So I talked to so many of them.
That's all.
Yeah, you better check your pockets when you get around.
I brought it. I thought I had it.
Shifty Keating here. So I decided I'm going to write a book like Tools of Titans, except I'm going to call it Lessons from Laureates. So actually out there, give me write a comment if you like. Which do you prefer better, in Tony's stream or in my stream? 2 titles. One could be Lessons from Laureates for my next book. The other one could be
that's a good one.
The other one could be Think Like a Nobel Prize Winner. So tell me which one you prefer, and wherever you're listening to this, leave it in the comment, leave a thumbs up, subscribe to both channels. Also support Tony. Please be a patron to him like I am. He does such phenomenal work. He's basically the most generous podcaster in the world that I've worked with. All these other people I go on their shows are like, yeah, sure, we'll put you on. And Tony is regular. He's authoritative. He gets great guests, and he's such a good friend. Please donate to him. Please subscribe to me, and then we'll have a crossover. But anyway, which do you like better, Lessons from Laureates or Think Like a Nobel Prize Winner?
Okay, well, since I've got you right here and I've got the mic, I'm just going to say I like Lessons from Laureates, and then as the subtitle you put down, How to Think Like a Nobel Prize Winner. That's what I think you should do. Okay. And because you always have a subtitle of your book that's like not you don't, but authors do. This is general statement. Tend to have a really long subtitle about what their book is right underneath. That's what I love alliteration. So you got it. I like the first one with the laureates. So
yeah. Okay. All right. Good. So that's one vote.
From laureates. That's
but anyway, yeah. So some of the things I've been doing is I've talked to like 8 Nobel Prize winners in the last 6 months. One of whom I recommend his book, which is A Beautiful Question. This is Professor Frank Wilczek. This guy has more jobs than I did when I was hustling to make my student loan payments. So he's a professor at MIT, Arizona State, this university in Taiwan. He's writing many books and he's also been recognized for his works in poetry and light verse. So I read this book, and then he asked if he could come back on. I said, I don't know, maybe not. But
he didn't impress me the first time around.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. He has a new book coming out in January, so I am going to have him back for a second interview. The one that I had last week or a couple weeks ago was a live stream with Q&A. But I'm going to do an actual interview with him about his upcoming book called Fundamentals. And that's I'm looking forward to that. So this is one of the books I want to recommend for your holiday gift giving. I have a link to it in my YouTube.
So say it again. Hold it up better so we can see it. It's A Beautiful Question.
So I
can't read the subtitle there, but
the subtitle is Finding Nature's Deep Design.
Okay.
And it's an exposition of the laws of physics, but told through the language of art. So he's got an extensive collection on the role of beauty and symmetry in art, in music, and so forth, and architecture. Here's a beautiful mosque somewhere, I think in Turkey, and this embodies, in his opinion, an underlying simplicity and order of the true laws of nature that he thinks are, the question that he poses is, does nature, the laws of nature, do they embody beauty? And that's the beautiful question. And so he's in stark contrast, you should know, to one Sabina Hassenfelder, who I had on the show this year as well, author of the book Lost in Math, who takes the exact opposite approach, that beauty is a horrible god for physics. So I've been looking into this question, asking physicists about this question, and it will continue. Tomorrow I'm interviewing Leonard Mlodinow, which is hard to spell but easy to pronounce. And he was Stephen Hawking's co-author on many books, including Grand Design. And the other one I am going to talk with him about is his most recent book, which is somewhere around here, called Stephen Hawking, A Memoir of Friendship. So that was a very nice book. It's a little different. You're actually learning more about Stephen as a human being from the perspective of a physicist. So anyway, so that's one book I'm working on. And then I'm also working on, I'm working on way too many things. I'm working on an audiobook of Galileo's dialogue. So right behind my ear over here is Galileo's dialogue. This is one of the most important books in human history. Let me go grab it. Hold on a second here. My book pile is going to collapse. So this is called The Dialogue Concerning the Two Chief World Systems. And you can buy it new or used, and Galileo still gets the same royalty. But I discovered, to my horror, when I was reading this book this past year for the first time, completely reading it, it's 300 or 400 pages. Sorry, it's 600 pages long. It's no beach read, but it's a wonderful book, and it's so exquisitely written in beautiful prose from the perspective of three characters that Galileo causes to interact over a period of time of 3 days in Venice, sharing laughter, insults, trading barbs, and so forth. And of course, has led to his house imprisonment, as I talk about in Losing the Nobel Prize. But the sad thing is there's no audiobook for this book. So I decided, how cool would it be to be the first person in history to record the audiobook for this book called The Dialogue. And I decided that it would be really cool, so cool that I couldn't do it. And so I conscripted my friend, Professor Lucio Piccirillo, and he is a professor at University of Manchester University, home of the Manchester United football squadron. And he is Italian, as you might be able to guess from his moniker. And he is going to record the audiobook. And I'm working with University of California, who owns the translation, to get the actual translation into print, because there's not even an ebook. This is the most, what Einstein called this book. The forward to this book is by a little known guy, and you might have heard of him. His name is Albert Einstein. So here he is there. So these make great gifts, by the way, Astro gifts. These are from the Unemployed Philosophers Guild. And you can get little dolls of all sorts of famous people, and some of whom have either been on my show, not Einstein, but Carl Sagan's daughter and his widow were on my show this year to talk about their new books, Cosmos, Possible Worlds. That was Anne Druyan, phenomenal book, richly illustrated. And then her daughter wrote a book for small creatures such as we, and I interviewed her, and that's a line from the movie Contact. So these are phenomenal authors that I had on, the first mother-daughter duo in Into the Impossible podcast history.
Okay, well, you went. Hang on, there's a echo when I talk.
Yeah.
Can you turn down your speakers a bit? There you go. Thank you.
Hold on, I'm going to put on my headphones.
Oh, okay, good. So yeah, because there was a echo there. So you went through a lot there, and I want to go back to something. I had to write it down so I wouldn't forget. So first of all, how can the university own the translation of a book that was written in, several hundred years ago?
Excellent question. That's something I wondered myself. And the reason is they own the translation. So the translation is a work of intellectual originality that they own the rights to. So a man by the name of Stillman Drake, if you can see it down there, Stillman Drake is actually the translator of this edition. That relates to the 1957 edition. Now, Stillman Drake is dead too, as far as I know, but his estate, has certain rights. So anyway, our fallback, if I don't get the rights to it, which I'm trying my best to get, my colleague Lucio speaks Italian, and there's an Italian translation that's about 100 years old, and he can do rendering in real time with a wonderful Italian American or Italian English accent, and he's able to actually convey the feeling of Galileo. It'll be also the first time a physicist has translated the work of Galileo, and so for that reason alone, I'm tremendously excited about this side project.
Okay, well, that is cool. And John Suffles, yes, he is talking about Manchester, England. You said University of Manchester, right?
Yes.
Yeah. The guy you're going to get doing the book with the audio book with you. And okay, well, I just want to remind everybody, I am streaming on all the things, so please chat and ask questions, and I'll read them out, and Brian and I will talk about them. So YouTube, Twitter, Paris, Facebook, Brian's channel, and Twitch, all those things. So by all means, I'm looking at all the chats, so let us know what you think if you got any questions and comments. So getting back to the other book, the one about physics and beauty, hold that up again, because we're giving people recommendations, and I want them to know what it is. A beautiful question. You said, the beautiful question is it physics or science embody beauty?
It's does nature embody
yes beauty? Okay, I got that wrong. That's quite a different question, because and implied in beauty, I think.
Sorry, let me be 100% accurate. The question is a single question: does the world embody beautiful ideas? So I was totally off many times.
Oh, I don't even understand what that means.
Yeah, well, that's why you got to read the book twice.
Yeah, I suppose so. But
listen to the audiobook.
Well, all right. A related question then. Science has all kinds of desires, whether it wants to admit it or not. One of them is it loves simple theories, Occam's razor, all that crap, and it also it finds things like symmetry beautiful, right?
Correct.
Being a cosmologist, and I know you know about this, but you're uniquely qualified to comment on it. On my Twitch, Tony's Twitch Tuesday, day before yesterday, Galaxia, one of the people who follow and watch, you know Galaxia, right? She brought up an article that showed, I think it had just come out in Astro PH, I'm not sure, where they were looking at, much like Bicep 2, they were looking at the polarization signal from the cosmic microwave background.
Yes.
And in it, they found a preference. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
They found this handedness preference. I forget which one it was. Right?
Yeah, it's called birefringence. Circular.
It doesn't matter, but they found a preference to it. So I have two. So first, I'd like to get your comments on that research. Then your comment would be framed in the sense of what's the big deal, and also and then I have a follow-up question on symmetry.
Yeah.
But what do you think of that research? Because it is related to the Bicep 2 mission, which you worked on.
That's right. Yeah. So I had a live stream about a month and a half ago with Sean Carroll after this paper came out. So I actually was aware of this paper. I was asked by Nature magazine to comment on it when it came out. It's actually written by two of my collaborators, Ichiro Komatsu and Yuto Miyami. And they're collaborators on the Simon's Array project in one case. And then Ichiro is a member of the oversight board for the Simons Observatory. And so these are very, very important people in my life and my career. And so I wanted to understand what this discovery was all about. I had been following this. I've been trying to make measurements just like this for a long time, and to no avail. And so what we decided to do is go deep and understand it from Sean Carroll's perspective, as he is one of the originators of the idea that you could add a certain type of breaking of symmetry, not adding symmetry, making the theory less beautiful. You could do that using what's called a Chern-Simons term, a type of violation of Lorentz symmetry, which is the symmetry that entails the invariance of all physical phenomena independent of their location in space, their orientation in space, their velocity in space, that the laws of physics should be independent of those quantities. And yet it would appear that if this measurement is confirmed, which is far from being confirmed, it is quite, it is quite high in terms of confidence, at least a 99% confidence, but that translates only into about a 2.4 sigma level of confidence. So it's not, it doesn't, many things are later shown to be wrong, despite having 99 or 99.9, or in the case of Bicep 2, 99.999% chance of fluke occurrence. So we don't quite have enough data to really support this idea that the universe has a preferred axis of rotation, so to speak. And that would be the implication of this discovery. But it is one of the most interesting things that we can look for with the cosmic microwave background's polarization.
And this preferred axis of rotation, they're saying, could be one of the things that helps explain some problematic observations we have, like this discrepancy of antimatter and antimatter and matter and those kinds of things. Correct? So hopefully, what do you think?
It's related to that. So
it's related.
Yeah. So there's something. So let me say what Tony's talking about. So there's an excess of matter over antimatter, we believe, in the universe, in that the amount of photons we have in the universe, there's about 1 billion photons in the universe for every proton. Let's just use it for simplicity's sake. So the baryon to photon ratio is 1 to 1 billion. We think that those billion photons came from the following scenario. We think that there were 500 million protons in the extremely early universe. We're talking about millions of a second after the Big Bang or less. We think that there were 500 million protons, and we think there was 500 million minus 1, so 499,499,909, et cetera, minus 1, and that number of antiprotons. So when protons and antiprotons come together, you'd get 500, I should have said 500 million and one, and then protons, 500 million antiprotons. And when you combine them together, boom, you're left with one proton left over and 1 billion photons. And that's where we think we get it. So there's a huge asymmetry of photons to baryons, but that reflects a very, very minuscule preference of baryons over photons, over antibaryons. And for that reason, we don't understand it. But Andrei Sakharov, the famous Nobel Peace Prize winner, not physics prize winner, he was a Soviet dissident, he claimed that was due to the existence of these different properties called the Sakharov conditions, one of which is the violation of parity, symmetry, and variance.
Okay, so that brings me to now getting back to the book that we were just talking about. So the idea of symmetry is important. It's something that we would like to see happen, but it doesn't seem to happen everywhere. It also correlates quite nicely with this idea of beauty. Now, in what way does this book that we're recommending, does it in any way try to bring the idea of beauty as a scientific
guide?
What am I trying to ask?
As a guide, yeah, he does.
Okay.
He actually goes through this book and he comes out with basically saying at some level, string theory and supersymmetry are kind of the most beautiful possible imaginable theories. And for that reason, in combination with other factors that he goes into, he believes that, within 5 years, he says that we will discover supersymmetry at the LHC. And this book was written 4 years ago, so he's got 1 year left. But so far, we have not seen any evidence for supersymmetry. And that was one of the conversations I had with Shelley Glashow, winner of the 1979 Nobel Prize, that these questions of the predictions for many, many decades, that we were on the verge of detecting string theory or supersymmetry or et cetera, that these were, every decade would come, there'd be no detection, and then we'd continue on as if nothing happened. And so the question of whether or not we're ever going to see this is a big one. And so much so, one of my signature questions on the Into the Impossible podcast, I ask all my guests, what would you put on a monolith, as in the monolith in 2001, A Space Odyssey? What would you put on it that would represent your values or your most impressive notions of what humans have discovered in physics? And Kamran Vafa, the world's most, one of the world's leading string theorists, said that he would put on it the equations of string theory. So imagine 1 billion years from now, or imagine 200 years ago, what would a 100-year-old Kamran Vafa put on his monolith? He might have put on the ether, the luminiferous ether is the most beautiful aspect because it's symmetric, it's stationary. So anyway, it made me laugh that some people are so convinced of the veracity of string theory that they'd be willing to basically use that as their summation of all of human knowledge. It's quite startling to me.
I know, and while we're talking about this, it just occurs to me that I keep asking the question, well, why are these things beautiful? And I don't understand why things need to be beautiful for them to be considered in, seriously in the scientific realm. The string theory, part of it especially is reliant on some, apparently, I don't see it, but apparently it's very beautiful mathematics. Mm-hmm. And, Plato argued that mathematics is reality. So these are real, regardless of whether we can actually verify any of this experimentally or not. String theory is real mathematically, therefore it's real in the, it's just a real thing, regardless of whether we can verify it. Stuff like that bothers me in the sense that it still seems like, and I don't know why it bothers me, but I don't know why we keep coming back to this idea of beauty in science, because it's not a scientific thing. It's just beauty is.
I even pointed out that, obviously I know a lot about beauty. Okay. I mean, let's face it. Okay. And you and I are the world's foremost.
No, just you, not me. You're. Yeah. So I'll take your
but
word.
You know what? Do you know why cosmology and cosmetology share the same prefix? No, seriously. Cosmos means beauty. It means beauty or appearance in ancient Greek. I'm a scholar in ancient Greek, in addition to a bodybuilder and a model. Just kidding. But it means beauty, and it means the beautiful face the universe presents to us. And no one can argue that something about the night sky is evocative and maybe entrancing the way a beautiful person like Tony is. But my comment is that actually they've done studies. So if you take like one of these dolls, so here's Marie Curie, and you look at her, she's actually asymmetric. They actually could have made her a lot prettier than that. I think that they saved money by taking the Noam Chomsky doll, who I also had on the show, and kind of converting it. Anyway, I'm not going to get into that. My friends run this company, Unemployed Philosophers Guild. Please solicit them for gifts for your Christmas and Hanukkah needs.
That's actually really cool. I kind of want some of those.
Yeah, I'll send you one. But but the point is, they've actually done a study. So you take a picture of Brad Pitt, the most handsome man in the world, present company excluded, according to People magazine, that reputed physical journal of great influence. And you take.
I prefer People review letters, but
that's right. Well, they used to have this calendar, Stud Muffins of Science, and they had. That's no longer in vogue. But anyway, they take a picture of Brad Pitt, they take his face, they split it down the middle, they throw out one half of it, and then they reflect his other half over. And you could do this with some beautiful woman, Gal Gadot or whatever, and you reflect, I only have eyes for my wife, so I don't know. You have to tell me who's beautiful. But anyway, Brad Pitt, you take his face, split it in half, and photocopy and paste, Photoshop over the other side, and he looks grotesque, horrible, unviewable. And so perfect symmetry is anathema. The human mind actually doesn't like perfect symmetry. And that's this thing, the uncanny valley is kind of related to something that's too good a simulacrum. And so I disagree with Frank about this very strongly, not to mention the fact that, there's, in my opinion, there's this proliferation of theories based on beauty. And I agree with Sabine Hassenfelder, who's come on my show, and as I said, both as a guest about her book, which is one of my favorite books of last year or 2 years ago, but also as a guest on my Theories of Everything. And I've been doing a lot of talks about theories of everything. And that's another ebook I'm putting on. So please subscribe to my mailing list. If you subscribe to my mailing list, which I'll put in both your chat room and in my chat room. But if you subscribe, I've got 2 ebooks that I'm going to be giving away for free. One is about the Great Debate, which is the most important debate that happened in the 20th century, and that involved the size of the universe. We talked about that, and then another one about theories of everything, and I wanted to really give something back to my audience, including many of the people that are on the phone or on the screen on the tube right now. So please do subscribe to that. But the thing that I really want you to take away is that we are really learning a lot about experiments of everything, and how experiments of everything, in the sense that an experiment has to be beautiful. You cannot do an experiment that's ugly, because if an experiment is ugly, it means it's not testing all the interesting applications of the theory that it's being designed to put to the guillotine potentially. In other words, every time I do an experiment, Tony, you know what I do? I do a null test. I do a test where I take the data and I split it in a certain way. So take this telescope here. The telescope should not know if I am scanning it to the left or scanning it to the right, correct? The telescope doesn't know if I took data on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, or I should say the universe doesn't care if I took data on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. Would you agree with that?
That's correct.
So therefore, it shouldn't care. The final data set cannot depend on the day of the week. So what I can do is take, or the season of the year. If it's cosmological, the cosmos doesn't care that it's about to be winter in the northern hemisphere, right? So for these reasons, we split our data and make perfectly symmetrical, beautiful data sets that should contain no signal and only noise. We use those data sets to then construct a model of how our instrument would perform in the absence of signal. And that is a beautiful thing. We make radiometers, telescopes that are unbiased. You've done flat fields. All experiments have to have a beautiful symmetric component to them. So I agree. A lot of the things I did this year, Stephen Wolfram's book, my friend Eric Weinstein does not have a book, and that's one of the books I'm also working on. So how many books are we up to now? Don't tell my wife.
We've done here, just a couple. So
no. I'm saying, how many am I writing according to you guys?
Oh, 3.
3. Okay. So I'm helping. I'm going to help Eric Weinstein put out a book, and then about geometric unity, his theory. And then, I went through a couple of the other ones so far. So we've gone over the dialogue, which I think everybody should at least read the first couple of chapters, only about 10 or 12 bucks on Amazon.
Okay.
And then I had on, I discussed the conversation I had with Frank Wilczek, Shelley Glashow, who also came on the show recently. He has a book from the 1980s called Interactions, and I want you guys to look at that. You can get that used. It's really not such a expensive book to read. But what's so interesting is that physics has not changed that much, with the exception of a few things: the discovery of the acceleration of the universe and the detection of the Higgs. And other than that, a lot of the universe and neutrinos, and discovery that neutrinos have mass, although we don't know their mass. So Glashow points out about 15 different things that the universe, that the physicists will learn in the next few years in 1988. And almost all of them on a report card that he gave to me on my show came out to be Fs, except for one or two. So that's the third book. That's Interactions by Shelley Glashow. I have that in the show notes in my channel.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to get to John Suffel because he's going on. He wants us to talk about beginning astronomy books. And what would we recommend for beginning astronomers? And I can take that one. But first, let me just say, you're also, John, offering people to get a copy of the Norton Star Atlas. They don't make that no more. And you can't do it. So instead of buying a book, the Norton Star Atlas, which I have a copy of, and it's on my bookshelf, but I don't want to spend the time looking for it right this moment. And so you're not going to get a copy of the Norton Star Atlas. But for beginner astronomers, this is called Astronomy 101. It's by my friend Carolyn Collins Peterson, and she it's a very small book, but it's a very accessible book, and it's written as sort of a crash course for learning astronomy and space, right? And it's divided up into sections for example, dark matter. What is dark matter? Star cluster, star depth, galaxies. There's a section on galaxy formation. And of course, the planets each have their own little section, and they're just little tiny sections. Just a few pages on each one. Like here is one on the moon, and it's talks about the phases of the moon, what causes that, things like that. A very good book for someone who doesn't understand what causes things like the seasons and why the phases of the moon. The one really, she's also written several books on the Hubble Space Telescope. So there's a section on Hubble. There's a section on the Kepler Space Telescope, Chandra, Spitzer, Fermi, and all these really groundbreaking space telescopes. And she's also got a section on people, and of course there's a section on Galileo, Johannes Kepler, the Herschels, Isaac Newton, Henrietta Swan Leavitt, Edwin Hubble, Albert Einstein, Vera Rubin, Clyde Tombaugh, who discovered Pluto, and Mike Brown, which I found. She just put Mike Brown in there. Mike Brown is the guy who posits this idea of Planet 9. And that's this Neptune-sized planet way out in the solar system with Konstantin Batygin. And he also was known as the Pluto killer. He was one of the people who voted against making Pluto a planet. So Astronomy 101, Carolyn Collins Peterson, great book for beginners for just getting started in astronomy. Okay, how's that, John? You can't get Norton Star Atlas. So instead of that, what you can get is Stellarium. Right.
Ooh,
on your computer. It is an app that is a planetarium app. You can run it on anything, and you can also get planetarium apps for your smartphone to do what Norton's did. And I'm sorry, I'm like you, John. I love my Nortons, but there's a better way of doing stuff now, and it involves, sadly, computers, phones, and tablets. So Stellarium is a free program. You can just download it and start looking at the sky, and it will teach you about the sky in a way that Norton's would have in book form, but you can't take it out to the telescope and start, finding stars, but there's software for that. So you don't need Norton's anymore, sadly, but it is a venerable book, and one that I would highly recommend. I have 3 copies, which I should probably give away to people who care about that stuff. I have too many books, so I'm happy to get rid of stuff. But Yeah. How's that, John? Did I do okay? Okay. What else you got for us, Brian?
Well, I did this conversation with Kamran Vafa. He's an esteemed professor at Harvard University, a small college in Cambridge, Massachusetts, I'm told. And that book is called Puzzles to Unlock the Universe, or Unravel the Universe. And it's a story of how he believes that you can come to appreciate very deep concepts in really advanced physics through the solution of puzzles. And I got to have a very fun conversation with him. As I mentioned, his answer to the question of his monolith in space didn't completely resonate with me because of its reliance, so to speak, on the provability of string theory. We could talk about that, but that there is a difference between a mystery and a puzzle. And how can we understand the difference between something that may not have a solution, but is mysterious and baffling, such as the existence of a string theory, or of God, something like that, or a puzzle which has a solution, like a Rubik's Cube has a solution. I joked with him that I'm really good. I can get I can get 5 sides of a Rubik's Cube. I just can't get that 6th side. I can't solve it. And he got the joke, so you get the joke too. Yeah. So that was a wonderful conversation because he's got all these mathematical puzzles, but they're a lot of them are just about physical intuition. There's like a chess kind of puzzle in there, and you get to see how this great guy, the great mind, thinks, and how you might be able to sharpen your mental arithmetic, your mental coprocessor, and beef that up by thinking about physical laws. And he actually gets into some pretty advanced things in the concept of spontaneous symmetry breaking. He talks about gauge theories in a way that you can really wrap your mind around. So that was a really delightful interview I did this past year. Lenny Susskind was a guest on the show about a month ago. I talked to him about his book, Black Hole War, which is really a book about quantum mechanics, not so much about black holes. But it involves Stephen Hawking, or as some of the people that write me, Stephen Hawkins, and they write me and tell me that Stephen Hawkins is wrong. But this book is about how he was wrong, in that he believed that information was destroyed when black holes were to swallow up matter, that it would erase and randomize the traces of matter in the universe. And then Lenny believed the other side of the argument. They had this bet with John Preskill, who's going to be a guest on the show next month in January. Stay tuned for that. The Brian Keating's Dr. Brian Keating on YouTube and Into the Impossible on iTunes. And so we're going to talk about that bet, which involved at various times I've heard it said that Stephen Hawking used to bet subscriptions to Playboy and bottles of liquor. He was a real character. So I only met him once. Did you ever meet him, Tony?
No, guy. I met Kip Thorne once. He was at a talk at University of Colorado, and he had a bet with Stephen Hawking, but I never met him. No.
Yeah, I'm hoping to get Kip Thorne. He's agreed tentatively to come on maybe in a month or two. So it turns out that he's
a rock star to me. I love him. He's
I'd love to have him on. His books influenced me greatly. And obviously the movie Interstellar is based on his actual underlying physical calculations. Mm-hmm. Other people I had on, some of whom do not have books but will have books. Barry Barish, I had on his interview came out this week on Dr. Brian Keating on Into the Impossible. And he is working on a book about the true history of LIGO. So how did LIGO come to make a detection of gravitational waves from inspiraling black holes? We've talked about that.
I love books like that because, one of my favorite all-time books is The Making of the Atomic Bomb by Richard Rhodes. And I loved it, but I didn't think I was going to like it. It's about making the atomic bomb, the Manhattan Project and all of that. I didn't think I was going to like that, but it turned out to be a great story about how science is done. And it was a great book for that. I learned all about people that I never would have heard about otherwise. These amazing physicists behind the scenes, and it was a great story. So books like this with LIGO telling the story of how it got to be done, that would interest me a lot. I would like to read that book.
So the three of them are hoping to do this, to do a book. Ray Weiss, Kip Thorne, and also to do and also Barry Barish. But what I found so interesting and refreshing about Barry Barish and also Ray Weiss, who I interviewed, that will come out very shortly as well, and that was their answer to my new question about whether or not they experience the imposter syndrome. So I experience the imposter syndrome on a daily basis. Whenever I come home, my kids are like, "Who the heck are you?"
Tell us what it is. Tell us what it is.
So the imposter syndrome is this belief that you are somehow unworthy of the attention or accolades or notoriety that you've achieved, and it's really a sense of self-doubt, and it can be quite invidious that people can undermine their abilities to accomplish great tasks. Depending on the degree to which they suffer it. So a lot of people, young people, minorities, in particular women in science, can be found to suffer from this because they don't feel like they look like, and they feel like they're transgressing in some sense. So it's a very pernicious effect. And I, just an offhand, when I asked Barry Barish, I said to him, what would you tell advice to your former self? On the Into the Impossible podcast, it's named after Arthur C. Clarke's famous third law, which is the only way to find out what is possible is to go beyond the limits of the possible into the impossible. And I asked that of Barry. I said, what would you tell your former self to do to go into the impossible? And he said, don't be ashamed, don't be scared, and don't be fearful and insecure. And I said, well, how did that really manifest itself? And he said, I was, he's like, well, I suffered from the imposter syndrome. And I said, oh yeah? And he said, yeah, I went up and he said, I still suffer from it. I was like, what are you talking about? You won the Nobel Prize. Give me a break. He's like, no, when you go out to accept the Nobel Prize medallion, you have to sign a book that shows that you actually received it and presented your lecture so that they got their money's worth, this 3-inch gold medallion. And he said, there's a book, a ledger that is bound in rich Corinthian leather. And he opened it up and he looked at some of the names on the pages before him, and he saw Richard Feynman, and he saw Murray Gell-Mann, and he saw this guy, Albert Einstein. Yeah. And he got chills, and I get chills thinking about it. So I urge people to listen to that interview. And then, so now I'm like, well, if a Nobel Prize winner can have the imposter syndrome, what the heck hope do I have? Some schlub. And so I've been asking people. I asked Frank Wilczek, also winner of the Nobel Prize in 2004. So Frank, you ever have the imposter syndrome? He said, "Oh God, no." So that was refreshing. He actually had a different opinion. Like, he felt he should have won the Nobel Prize decades earlier. He came up with the theory of asymptotic freedom in 1973. He won his Nobel Prize 31 years later. So he was 22. He won it. He was 53. He had to wait 3 decades. Everybody telling him, "You've discovered why quarks are confined. You're definitely going to win a Nobel Prize just any day now." And imagine waiting 30 years. Like, you don't know if you're going to live. So it was just startling to hear that he kind of felt like he deserved it earlier. And I agree with him, although he understands why he didn't get it. And then I asked Ray Weiss, who was a co-winner of the Nobel Prize with Barry Barish. You'll hear about his answer next week. And so then I asked Lenny Susskind, who's a friend of mine. I just saw an email pop in now from him. And Lenny's kind of a crusty guy. He's been on my podcast now. And I asked him, would you introduce me to Gerard de Hooft, his friend? He's Gerard's a Nobel Prize winner. And I'm just looking as we're talking, Lenny sent an email and copied me to Gerard. And it said, Brian asked me if I could get you on Into the Impossible podcast. And I said, there's no way I can get Gerard to do anything, but just maybe he should do it because Brian's podcast is excellent, worth doing in my opinion. And Brian himself is a professor of physics. I found talking to him to be pretty interesting. So I take that as highest encomium possible from someone like Lenny Susskind.
Yeah. Well, my comment on that is the imposter syndrome is prevalent in science, I think, because it is, as an endeavor, it's a pretty scary place to be. It's adversarial by nature.
Yes.
And so you need to have a really strong sense of who you are and what your ideas stand for to be successful in science. And it's very tough to maintain that under constant questioning and adversarial discussions. And then we're not talking about mean arguments, although sometimes they can be. I'm talking more about this. You're always defending yourself. You're always putting up something that says, no, I'm right because, and you're always working it. And it's it can do a number on you psychologically. So I think that's a big source of it, and I think it's healthy that people have this. You shouldn't be debilitating. It's easy to say, well, just have confidence and just don't be afraid. It's easy to say that, but it's quite another to have that kind of conviction and courage to stand up for something that nobody else really believes yet, because this is your idea and you've got to prove to them that it's true. That's a tentative place to be in, and so you really got to be strong about it. Now there are some people who have strong enough personalities it doesn't matter. Exactly. But I can imagine it's easy for me to imagine a great number of people being insecure in their work to the point where they think that about themselves. And I've plenty of stories where I've tested that myself with people who were less than kind, shall we say? But I've been able to push back in some effective ways to people that were just being obstructionists. So I find that interesting that you ask those people that, and that you get this response back from them about what it's like, because it humanizes what they're doing a lot.
Exactly. That's part of what I want to do in Think Like a Nobel Prize Winner, or Lessons from Laureates, whatever the audience.
From Laureates, How to Think Like a Nobel Prize Winner.
Okay, good. So as long as you buy 8,000 copies, I will name it after you, Tony.
No, oh wow, okay. Just dedicate is all I need.
So yes, that's one of the missions of that book, is to humanize the prize winners. But I have time for about one more. I do have to go home. It's the end of our Hanukkah season, and I want to be there for the young little ones.
Is this the eighth night? Is this the eighth night?
This is the last night. Yeah, very good.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would say the other books that really influenced me this year were by people like, that you wouldn't really expect to be as influential on a scientist, but these were ones that I blurbed. So I actually had the opportunity to write blurbs that appear on the back of books. And two of them really stood out this year. One is called Betraying the Nobel, and that's by Uni Turretini. And she wrote a book about the Nobel Peace Prize that's analogous to losing the Nobel Prize, my book, except it's about the atrocities committed by the Nobel Peace Prize Committee. And I joke because on the book, the first person to write a blurb on the back of the book is the person who wrote the foreword, and that's none other than Michael Nobel, who's the great-grand nephew. Remember, Alfred Nobel had no children, but it's his great-grandnephew. It's his brother's grandson. And that Michael Nobel wrote the foreword and the first blurb, and then underneath that is my blurb, Brian Keating's blurb. So I joke this is the closest to a Nobel that I'll ever get in real life. And the other book that really, a couple. I did a couple. One is by an astronomer, and it's behind me. It's called Cosmic Odyssey by Linda Schweitzer. She'll be on the podcast maybe early next year. And I got to write a blurb for her book, which is a history of the astronomy done from Mount Palomar here in San Diego. But it's really also an astronomer's guide. It helps an astronomer really understand how important this device was in revolutionizing our understanding of the cosmos. So I have a blurb on that book. Let me go get it because it is available.
Now you put links on all of this on your description and in your stream, correct? All these books.
So it's called Cosmic Odyssey. It's a dense book. It's a beautiful book. Okay. And it's Linda Schweitzer, as I said, she'll be on. It features a tremendous number of gorgeous, lavish illustrations, pictures, and really her personal perspective on. But I really found it to be a great guide. So you asked about, somebody asked about books for to learn about astronomy. This would be one, because this actually talks about the history of astronomy, but as seen through a single telescope, literally through a single telescope, all the way up to, the formation of the universe, black holes, warps in space-time. And as I said, I was honored to write the blurb on the back alongside of Robert Kirshner, who I'm sure you know, and Priya Naratajan, who's a author of Mapping the Heavens. This is another wonderful book. I hope to have her on. So, yeah, it's been an amazing year for the Into the Impossible podcast. Of course, I thank you very much for bringing it to your
podcast,
massive
man.
audience.
You don't got to thank me. It's good stuff. So, yeah, good work.
Look forward to next week. I'm talking to Lord Martin Rees. He is on the show. I recorded an interview with him this week. I asked him about
everybody, man.
Well, somebody said, you got to get Albert Einstein.
Royal, right at the Royal Astronomical Society or something like that.
He's the Astronomer Royal, so that's the Royal Greenwich Observatory. And then I asked him to do my horoscope, but he punched me in the face for that.
I would love to do that. Oh, could you do? What sign are you, man? Just ask him. Oh, you're the Astronomer Royal. What sign are you?
So
that'd be awesome. Oh man. He would. Oh, that would not be awesome. I'm kidding.
So please stay tuned for new and upcoming episodes of the Into the Impossible podcast. Okay. Please subscribe to my newsletter. I'll send you guys this 70-page ebook from this conversation I had with Adam Rees, David Spergel, who's the new president of the Simons Foundation president-elect of the Simons Foundation, incoming president. And I'll send you this wonderful book that I've made with images, diagrams, etc., from Adam Rees, Wendy Friedman, Jenna Levin, who wrote another book that I love this year called Black Hole Survival Guide, and Sarah Seeger, who wrote a wonderful book called The Smallest Lights in the Universe. So please do subscribe to the newsletter.
Her I know.
That's great. Okay, Tony. Okay, everybody. Right. Love you all. Thank you so much. Please stay tuned next year. We're going to have, as I said, John Preskill, Martin Rees, Ray Weiss, and hopefully Kip Thorne. And then I'm trying to get Elizabeth Blackburn, who won the Nobel Prize in Medicine, to come on the show. And we'll see. It's hard to get. I asked a couple of, there's only 2 living women who have won the Nobel Prize in Physics. And so far, half of them have turned me down just because they don't do podcasts. So I'm trying to get a very diverse cross-section. But it's hard. It's hard because there's so few of them. But that's part of the problem with the Nobel Prizes. Well, I know.
Yes, and if I don't talk to you beforehand, hope you have a great rest of the year, and I look forward to spending some of 2021 with you. So
that'll be awesome, Tony. Keep doing what you're doing. Everybody out there, love you very much. Yeah. Thank you for being great fans. Yeah. Podcast grew from 60 subscribers in January. Now I've got almost 16,000.
Nice
on YouTube, and then a bunch on downloads. Thank you so much, Tony.
Congratulations.
Have a wonderful Christmas, New Year's, everything you do.
All right, thanks, man.
Bye, my friends.
All right, don't forget to stop the stream on your channel in case
I'm doing it now.